Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you on this October 13th, 2025. I got all your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And, Mondays, I like to ease you into it, but there's just too much to cover. Bombshell news in Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni that came out over the weekend. As evidence has been unsealed, we now know who's the person who illegally recorded Steve Sarowitz. We now know what Justin's agent was saying about Blake Lively, calling it extortion. Lots of tea to get into. Also, Mark Sanchez leaves hospital looking terrible. We'll give his update as he's again facing felony counts. And Katy Perry might be looking for, I guess, some Canadian citizenship as she's caught canoodling with a Canadian politician. And then we'll have a little bit on Candace Owens makes bombshell claims in the Charlie Kirk the conspiracies that are flying around regarding his death. And, I don't want to overuse the term bombshell, but we're living in the middle of our modern day JFK assassination where they're looking at flight logs and she now thinks that a hit was put on him on a certain date. We're going to get into all of that. I know it's a lot to get into for a Monday morning. So grab your iced coffee. And by the way, if you have a short drive to work, you might have to do a couple laps around the parking lot because we got a lot to get into. These stories and more starts right now on The Rush. So we're going to dive a good amount into the Blake Lively stuff. Stick around for that. But now we have Mark Sanchez released from the hospital, and there's his mugshot right there. But let's listen to what he had to say. Again, he was stabbed and pepper sprayed, but he was the one charged with crimes as he was either on a bender, on drugs, or something was going on. But boy, this guy is in trouble. Have a listen.
Right now I'm just focused on my recovery, and I just wanted to thank the first responders, Eskenazi Hospital. That's right, you're going to hit some. I just want to thank Dr. Mossler, the surgeon. She saved my life, so I'm grateful for that. Sorry, I can't answer all your questions.
So then there he goes. He thanks the doctor that saved his life. Now, he, almost murdered this guy seemingly, but, I don't know if it's the drugs or maybe, the recovery or feeling like he pissed away his entire career. I really don't know, but he sounds terrible. So this is the mother of his son speaking out on his arrest right now. Here's what she had to say. Her name is Bobby T., real name Erin Campaneris. They share an 8-year-old Daniel Sanchez. She released a statement on Instagram yesterday. I'm aware of the serious criminal charges currently facing my son's father, Mark Sanchez. My foremost priority has always been and remains our 8-year-old son, Daniel. I chose to remain silent publicly to protect Daniel. Now that everything is out in the open, my focus hasn't changed. I've always been concerned for his safety and for what he is exposed to. Sadly, none of this is surprising to me. Like everyone else, I learned of the horrific event through a news alert on my phone while sitting next to Daniel. I still know only what is publicly available. My thoughts and empathy are with the victim and everyone affected by this devastating event. It has created a wide ripple effect touching many lives. I understand that we live in a very public world, but my hope is that my son grows. He can be seen and understood apart from this story. I'm simply a mama to a very sweet young boy doing my best to protect his peace. Thank you for the compassion. And so many have shown towards Daniel and me. It's interesting because obviously, financially speaking, she probably doesn't want Mark Sanchez's life savings to be drained if he loses a lawsuit and all these other things. But did she have to live through some sort of monster scenario? Like, are we going to learn more about Mark Sanchez, or was this a one-off event? Again, we'll have to see. Sad news over the weekend. Also, Diane Keaton passed away, dead at 79. And I know a lot of people think, man, gone too soon. But that's kind of life expectancy, right? But I still don't know the cause of death. The LA Fire Department responded to her home at 8 a.m. Saturday morning and transporting her to a local hospital. But so that was a big deal in the Hollywood circle. How about this? Be careful when you look up to the skies. There are Starlink satellites raining to the ground.
The Earth is big, and 71% is covered by oceans. So the chance right now of getting killed by a fragment from a satellite reentry is not large. But the Federal Aviation agency estimated that within a decade, this chance of getting hit by a fragment rises to 61%.
Listen, if anyone's ever had a dead zone where you really need to make a call, you will risk getting hit by a fragment. But they're saying these Starlink satellites are falling, 2 of them per day. I mean, how many Starlink satellites are up there? They do provide pretty good internet. Can you hear me now? Yeah, just put a football helmet on and don't look up. You know what I mean? All right, Luigi Mangione in the news. His lawyers are seeking to get several dismissals on the charges that would probably prevent him from facing the death penalty.
Let's get right into some breaking news. We are learning this morning that Luigi Mangione's lawyers are seeking dismissal of federal charges. This, again, just coming in hours ago here. So lawyers for Luigi Mangione asked a New York federal judge this morning to dismiss some criminal charges, including the only count for which he could face the death penalty from a federal indictment brought against him in the December assassination of United Healthcare's chief executive. In papers filed in Manhattan federal court, the lawyers said prosecutors should also be prevented from using at trial his statements to law enforcement officers and his backpack where a gun and ammunition were found.
All right, so it looks like, this trial is going to be so interesting. Can you believe it's almost been a year? If you're new to my channel, we're going to be covering this closely because, he was accused of being a terrorist and, because was it, politically motivated or whatnot. But I don't think it was a terroristic act at all. It was a sort of a lone, he killed one person allegedly, and that was it. Was he a danger to society otherwise? I don't know. But either way, we'll be covering that trial as it continues to shape up. All right, let's move it on. Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau, steamy yacht session off California coast. I mean, you'll do anything to get dual citizenship, right? Listen, I mean, Katy Perry seems to be a lot, but maybe Justin will find fireworks in their life. Do you see what I did there? I don't know. Good for them. You know what I mean? She, of course, was with Orlando Bloom until recently. And was he married? He got divorced. I don't know. Whatever. He's, welcome to the Real Housewives of North American politicians and pop stars getting together. Why not? All right. I mean, listen, this is big. We have big stuff to get into, and I don't want to waste any more of your time. So coming up next, I've got the director who has her declaration about Justin Baldoni. What was said? Did it live up to the expectations? And then I've got Justin Baldoni's agent claiming Blake Lively was committing extortion. These big updates coming next. Telehealth has made mental health care more convenient and accessible for millions of people. Finding a suitable therapist and the expensive out-of-pocket cost still keep many from getting the care they need. Rula is on a mission to make high-quality mental health care from a licensed professional easy and affordable for everyone. Rula's got you covered. They take most major insurance plans, and the average copay is only $15 per session. Rula partners with a network of over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists nationwide, enabling you to find your personalized solution and the right therapist for you. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. So head on over to rula.com/rushhour to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Go to rula.com/rushhour and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. So we have the declaration by Claire Ayoub. She directed Empire Waste, one of Baldoni and Wayfair's films, and in the declaration, she basically says, I didn't want Justin Baldoni to be involved in my PR because of the stank that was around him and Blake Lively. It really didn't have too much to do with who was right and who was wrong. It was just someone really not wanting the, energy being pulled away from them. But let's go to her declaration. She wrote and directed Empire Waste. I, Claire Ayoub, pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1746, hereby declare as follows. I'm over 18 years of age, of sound mind, and otherwise competent to make this declaration. The evidence set out in the foregoing declaration is based on my personal knowledge. I wrote and directed a film called Empire Waste, which was produced by Wayfair Studios. Justin Baldoni, a founder of Wayfair, was a producer. As part of my work on Empire Waste, I had repeated negative interactions with Mr. Baldoni and his associates, including verbal abuse by Mr. Baldoni. I asked Wayfair that Mr. Baldoni not be permitted on set during the majority of production as a result of those experiences. Empire Empire Waste was set to be released in the fall of 2024. In August of that year, as a result of my experiences with Mr. Baldoni and ongoing press coverage related to Mr. Baldoni and It Ends With Us, I requested that he not be involved in Empire Waste marketing. Less than a week after reaching that agreement, I was contacted by the assistant to Steve Sarowitz, co-founder and co-chairman of Wayfair, to schedule a time for me and Mr. Sarowitz to speak. Mr. Sarowitz's assistant did not identify a topic for the meeting. I feared Mr. Sarowitz wanted to discuss my recent request related to Mr. Baldoni, worried that Mr. Sarowitz might pressure me to abandon the prior agreement that I had reached with Wayfair. I recorded our meeting. The audio of the conversation was filed, but no transcript is available at this time. The audio was then at some point provided to Blake Lively and her team. This is the audio that contains the dead bodies quote by Steve Sarowitz. She also cut off Baldoni around the same time Lively had gotten cast of the film to unfollow Baldoni. Now, why is this interesting? Well, it's interesting for several reasons, because what the heck was going on? And of course, she doesn't give any specifics as to whatever verbal abuse she claims she had to deal with Baldoni. Now, always, and this isn't me being apologetic towards anybody here, but whether you're a producer or a director, you're always going to be fighting over something from how much money do we have to shoot a project, to creative differences, casting issues. When you produce the project, you're providing the money. You get a say in the director and all of the negotiations. So that's normal. But to call it verbal abuse, I'm going to need some specifics before I can even really give an opinion on what that is. Now, what's interesting, though, is folks are sharing this. Citizen journalists shared the mystery declarant is Claire, saying she had a bad set experience with Justin, and yet they say it doesn't add up, sharing these messages. Baldoni says, "Home stretch, what a cast," and Claire responds, "5 days left." And then the next one, Claire, tags Justin, or does she tag him in here? "Wrapped so many of our gems this week, including the phenomenal," and then shares the different people. These brilliant performances on the big screen. My life is better with y'all in it. Well, what I think is interesting is this type of comment. It sounds like the smear campaign by Lively's team during It Ends With Us marketing phase led to Ayub requesting Baldoni not participate in the marketing of her film. That's a reasonable request to avoid cross-contamination. So yeah, it's interesting that, Claire probably, for the most part, cares about her movie and not getting it bad press. But when she says there was verbal abuse by Baldoni and his associates, that's what I'm looking at. Now, that shouldn't matter to Blake Lively's claims as far as the trial goes, because it's like, if you're verbally yelling at somebody, what's a verbal abuse? It's such a flippant term. It could mean something that's super messed up, like if Baldoni was yelling derogatory terms at her, but it could also mean them having a fight over how long they were taking to film a scene. I have no idea here. But I think it's interesting because, there's this kind of theory that people have that everybody's trying to stay on Blake's good side. Her and Ryan Reynolds, they're connected high up at the agency, and they've got all of this sort of clout and equity around them. Was this Claire's way of trying to make good with Blake with their backdoor dealings, or is that just fan fiction to think that it was that deep? Either way, really not much here, other than people are wondering if Steve Sarowitz will sue Claire for illegally recording him, assuming this was in California. Some states you can record someone without their consent, and then other states it's two-party where both sides have to agree to the recording. Either way, what does this recording sound like? I think we're eventually going to hear it. And was anything taken out of context? Claire eventually got this recording to Blake Lively, and I think that's what leads people to be suspicious of the recording. So and by the way, I don't blame Claire. If I was meeting with producers of my film, I might record it too, just for my own safety, even if it is illegal. But at the same time, and by the way, I recorded my interview with Business Insider when they were interviewing me for this project. That interview never came out. What a waste of my 40 minutes. Should I release the interview to you guys? Either way, I said that because I think it's important to record yourself so things aren't twisted and contorted in certain ways. But now we're going to get a chance to see what Steve Sarowitz said and in what sort of motivation it was. Was it physically threatening, or was he just upset because he felt like Blake Lively was extorting his film? And speaking of extorting, here is Danny Greenberg. This is Justin Baldoni's talent agent. And he answers questions, visiting a client, which is what I do when my clients are directing films. This is from the deposition. They ask where it was shot, New Jersey, and then ask questions about, who were you talking to in this, thing we're going to show. So he, basically says, I'm talking to Justin Baldoni. And this is what he had to say. They are your partners. It was theirs too. Perrin, i.e., you want to mention this AM event, their acknowledgement of the continued extortion in effort to gain control of the film. So this is interesting because he's labeling this way back when in this deposition, but also as written, he's labeling their conversation as discussing continued extortion. This is a big deal because they felt they were being extorted by Blake Lively. They didn't feel as though Justin did something wrong and therefore Blake was making him sign an agreement so that they could have a good set. No, at the time they felt like it was extortion. At the time you sent these suggestions for letters to Sony, you sent to Mr. Baldoni. Had you had discussions with anyone at Sony about Miss Lively's effective attempts at extortion? Miss Leader says, objection. And then Danny says, I had an ongoing conversation with Ange Gianetti, the executive of the project, about the behavior that Blake was displaying along the way. And at this point in time, what was on the table was the premier issue. Miss Garofalo responds, you were choosing your words very carefully, weren't you? And he says, I don't remember my state of mind when I wrote this letter. And then Miss Garofalo says, is it your practice to choose why you are... Is it your practice to choose why you are words carefully when conveying an important message? He said, I do my best. And she said, and you used the word extortion in this. So again, just doubling down, making it clear, like he wasn't flippantly calling it extortion. Chat suggesting to Mr. Baldoni what he might write to Sony, correct? Yes, it's in the text, he says. That's a pretty strong word, isn't it? He said it felt appropriate at the moment. You anticipated my next question. Thank you. Then you go on to say, but don't in any way put Sony on the defensive or indict them. Then if you can be contrite in some capacity very briefly, acknowledging the two of you had your moments which she would dissect your energy, word choice, and personality frequently that led to mutual discomfort working with one another. Perrin, not everyone gets along kind of thing. Not all personalities are compatible. Now, when you were suggesting to Mr. Baldoni that he write something to Sony saying, other people have agreements or downplaying the agreements, did you believe that Mr. Baldoni was taking Miss Lively's conduct too? Listen, it's interesting, right? Because this is exactly what we thought happened, right? This is exactly what people thought went down, which was you have Baldoni, his agent, everybody at Wayfarer, kind of stuck between Blake Lively and stuck between Sony. We saw the emails previously of Sony saying, hey, just get your shit together, just figure it out. You're being difficult. Not realizing, my guess is, how Wayfair was getting robbed. Again, this is Wayfair's, side of things, how they're saying it. We'll have to hear what Blake Lively kind of says in return to all of this. But, it's no surprise that Justin Baldoni's agent is going to be defending him here. But they got it in writing. Like, this is in writing, that this is what they believed at the time. My guess is, honestly, this thing goes to trial. This jury's not going to buy a word Blake is saying, because you just see this timeline broken down. It's complicated as we talk about it right now, but that's why they get paid the big bucks, because they can break it down, that timeline that can lead the jury to the water, and then they're going to look at all this and go, yeah, if Blake Lively had conversations in writing with her agent that Baldoni was, harassing her and whatnot, then she'd have some credibility, but she doesn't have those timestamps. Whereas Baldoni in the moment says, listen, this is what's going down here. And, you might argue Blake Lively has that, 14-point agreement or 17-point agreement, whatever it is. But again, that was very, convenient that she had that months after returning back to the set. All right, last clip for the first half of the show. How about this? Chapel Roan says F ICE forever, and then the feds clap back. I want to share what the actual TikTok from her at her show. Look, think what you want about Chapel Roan. I love that she's not afraid to walk someone in her audience to say her opinion.
Here, and the city has taken care of me, and it's only my duty to take care of it back. So I just want to thank you, and I don't know, fuck ICE forever. Fuck ICE.
And then look, you think what you want, but my opinion is, if you are law enforcement and you wear a mask and you don't have to identify yourself and you can throw people to the ground and falsely imprison people and then drop charges on them and terrorize neighborhoods and rip apart families and do all of that, I think you'd expect nothing less from performers, from people to say, yeah, fuck them, And you can say that without everyone, well, you're putting their lives at you're putting their lives at risk. It's like, listen, when your job is to terrorize communities, come in and mess with the fabric of their family and neighborhood life, that's what you're signing up for. It's dangerous out there. I'm not encouraging any violence whatsoever, but saying F them is your God-given First Amendment right, which we've had, our country has fought for. So let's see if we have any response from the feds. DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs Tricia McLaughlin says Pink Pony Club is good. Pedophiles are bad. That's who we're getting off of our streets. Get a grip. Well, okay, 99% of the people that they're deporting, arresting, and all of that are just people who have tried to make a good life. They're at a Home Depot trying to get some work. They're in farms. They're with families. They're getting plucked out of, their cars, dropping their kids off at school, trying to go through the process of green card, citizenship, work visas. That is grossly misrepresenting the terror that exists out there. McLaughlin did not cite any statistics, but here's some numbers to chew on. A recent study from the Cato Institute found 65% of people detained by ICE from October 1st, 2024 to mid-June this year have never committed a crime. ICE is nabbing sex offenders in the immigration raids, but a lot of hardworking folks are getting swept up too. We know what side of the story we're on, and I don't know where everyone else is, but we know where we stand. All right, coming up next, I got Candace Owens. Look, I'm not here to judge Candace, but she's making some wild claims. We'll share what she has to say about the Charlie Kirk death this coming next.